Tower from Rotodyne. Take off clearance, please.
Rotodyne from Tower, you're clear to go.
Roger. Rotodyne taking off now.
Right, I am ready to start cleaning this fuselage up. It's not too bad in the main, but there are some seams to just sort out. My first job is actually, I've got a bit of a gap there that I can actually push together, so the first job is actually to just glue that, hold that in place and get that to close up. That's a nice easy fix for that gap. Then we can get stuck in and start scraping some of this down. We'll just hold it like that for a minute. But it's not too bad, but the main thing is, look how many gaps we've got to fill. Tooled in 1959 and there is no gaps. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Right, we can start at the top here, which needs to be flat, so yeah, there's quite a bit of a lip. In fact, that's probably the worst lip that we've got. So we need to make sure that we're doing that with something nice and flat. I'm going to use a 400 grit, and these Infinity sanding sticks are quite good because they're quite flat. They're not as good as an emery board, but they're a bit bigger. So it's wide enough to do all of that in one go, which is what we're looking for. Well, you get the general idea. I'll carry on with this and show you what it looks like when we're done. Right, we are ready to put the wings on. Already test fitted these a few times. The fit is not perfect, but it's not a problem. So I'm just pulling this together now. You can see we've got the tail on, got the wings on. I've put the first engine nacelle on. Obviously this is just dry fitted, the rotor and the engine prop there. So I've got one more to do, just clean up the seams on that. The fit of the engine nacelles to the wings is really quite good. So then we can strip this back. There's a little bit of filling to do, a little bit of sanding, and then we're ready to prime. Now, I'm going to hand paint this. The top is white, and I think a lot of people struggle to paint white. It's like yellow. It's difficult to get the coverage, but I have a little trick that helps out with that. So we're going to do that, which is how I go about it. We don't need to use primer, but we need to get rid of this grey. So we'll do that, and then the bottom half is silver, and then we have decals running through the middle, and then we have to paint the front a blue that matches the decals. So the all the glazing will get painted in that blue. Yeah, so it feels like we're sort of getting there a little bit now. So I'm quite happy with how this is starting to shape up, and it all sort of fits together quite nicely. So yeah, it's not a bad little kit at all, if I'm honest. Fit of these parts has been really, really good throughout the whole kit, really. And we've not got much left to build up, just pretty much the flaps for the landing gear, which I've already cleaned up, so it's just a matter of placing them and painting them. We are losing a little bit of rivet detail, but actually not too much. Right, got a little bit of cleanup to do around those pegs there, because that is not going to sit right. Right, I think that'll do for now. Looks okay. We've got some filling to do, and then we'll prime it, and that will help us see anything that's going to show under paint. So let's see if we can get this on. Take that off. There you go. Fit of that is lovely, isn't it? Okay, that's our engine nacelles on. Now that is interesting. There's been no reference to putting weight in it, but it clearly needs some. So we need to think about that, and I think we're going to have to put some weight in at the front there. It's the only space we've got for it, really. I'll have a think about that. So I need to work out how much weight we need to get that to sit properly. So I'll put a couple of pieces of blue tack in, and I've got some liquid lead here, which is basically just lead balls, like almost like fishing weights. So I need to work out how much weight I need. So I've got a little bit of blue tack, roughly the amount we could possibly use in there, and we need, what I'm going to do is make a little blue tack bowl, and then we're going to fill it with this liquid lead weight, and that should, we can just sort of pile it in until that sits like that, and then we know how much weight we've got to do, and then we'll sort out how we're putting it in after. But we can weigh that on the scales afterwards, you see. Now we have to remember also that we've got that to go on. So if I just place the canopy over there, I want to put as little weight in as possible, just because of space, really. We haven't got much space. Right, so that is, we've just passed our tipping point, so let's just mix it into the blue tack, and then we'll separate it into two. If I can make it thin enough, I might be able to pass it into the doorway. And then we can always block the doorway off. Right, let's see if we've sorted that. Job done. Right, we've got some gap filling to do. I'm using Vallejo plastic putty for this in the main, or I should say in the first instance. We might find we need some different filler once we've primed, but initially if we use this is a very quick and easy way of filling our gaps to start with, and we'll probably do most of the ones that we've got. Some of them might end up being a little bit too big for it. It's such a quick way of filling a gap, it's just brilliant. That is pretty much it for the filling, or I had a little bit to do just at the back end here, didn't I? So I think, considering the age of this kit, that is not bad at all. Okay, so top half of this is white, bottom half of it is silver, and these decals sort of split down the middle to divide it. So as we look at that, we can see the decals are going to just about cover the windows, plus a couple of millimeters each side. So we can pretty much say that we're safe to put our first paint and primer up to the middle of the windows, and it's not going to cause us any issues. So gonna just tape up a center line all the way along, and then we can sort this. Now, with the two halves being contrasting, I want to make sure that I don't get anything under an area that's going to have white paint, because I'm going to do the silver surfaces all in black primer to start with. So we've got quite a bit of that to do. So I'm going to just check my colour references and then we'll start doing that. So we are ready to start painting, and I want to keep this as true to the original kit as possible. So we are using all the paints that were shouted out originally, and which is this list here, and we will keep to Humbrol paints as much as possible, I think. There might be one or two that we can't do, such as the gloss white, for example. But in the main, we will stick with Humbrol, and where we can't use Humbrol, we will probably use Vallejo, I would think. Although I do have some Tamiya lacquer paints which might come in handy for some of this. So we are going to try and use the Humbrol paints as much as possible. I have got them mapped out here as to what the colours are and the correct numbers. So we start with the cockpit, and the cockpit is Humbrol 27. Okay, we are not going to bother with primer, which means we'll just have to do 2 coats instead. This has been quite well sanded, so it's got a keyable texture, I guess. Now the instructions say the seats and the cockpit floor are all the same colour, so that's what we will do. It's a lovely grey, actually, Humbrol 27. It's a really nice shade of grey. Now I've still not found my missing figure, so we're just going with one figure right now. And I am going to paint the underneath, just because I'm not 100% sure how much of this is visible with the undercarriage down and so on. We won't do the side strips because we know that they'll have glue on. So that's our first coat on. It's not gone down too bad at all, that actually. So our figure is wearing a blue uniform, and they call for 25, which is a matte blue, quite a nice deep blue colour. So I'm putting the blue down first, then we can paint skin and stuff in. I'm going to try and be careful to avoid his shirt because that needs to be white. is hat is blue too. Now in the instructions they just say paint the hat blue, but I reckon there would be some form of silver badge on the front there, and the peak would be black. So I'm going to do the peak in Humbrol 85 satin black, which is the same colour that we're doing his shoes, and I think that'll tie him in quite nicely. Quite a nice blue that. Now he looks like he's got big ears. Now I reckon they must be headphones, and there is nothing in the instructions about the colour of the headphones, so might do them green just for contrast. Okay, that will do. So whilst I have gloss black paint out for the figure, I thought we might as well do one or two of the items that we're going to have to do in metallic colours. And basically, instead of putting a black gloss primer down, we can put this black gloss paint down. That way we're not wasting any paint, and effectively it does the same thing. Okay, time to try the decals for the first time. We have a couple of decals that we need to put into the cockpit area. Got to say, that looks like it's oversized for where it's supposed to go, but we will see. I'm hopeful that these decals will be okay. There's no yellowing or anything on them, so I'm hoping that's a good sign. There is a couple of decals missing from this, obvious ones. There is a couple of mistakes that have been made by Airfix. There's actually a mistake with the model as well, which we will sort. But there is some of these blue stripes missing from the engine pods, and these that say Rotodyne, it should actually say Fairey Rotodyne, like it does there, not just Rotodyne. So a couple of mistakes, can't do much about them. Might try and mask off and paint the engines, but we will see. So we'll start by doing the main spreader dials. We'll get that one into soak. So I'll give it a bit longer to soak than normal because they're a little older. Now this is supposed to go on there. Oh, I guess it might just fit. Looks a little bit oversized. Nope. It's a nice looking decal, that actually. I want to put the other one in because this is taking quite a bit of time to soak itself. Okay, there we go. The decal has finally decided it's happy to part company with the paper. So let's get that on. I've got a small issue with the fit there, which looks like it's the backing film that's just catching on the corner. So there we go. I think we're past that now. Just have to maneuver it a bit to get it to sit nicely. Yeah, that looks really quite good. So just going to give it some microset just to help it have a bit of a good time. Okay, happy with that. Right, second decal is ready. Let's see if we can get this on. So this sits between the two seats below that little opening where the dashboard's going to go, so got to put it over the curb. In fact, what I will do is I'll put a little bit of microset down first, just to help that process a little bit. Now bear in mind when you are positioning this that there is some carrier film at the top, and you don't want that getting in the way of fitting your part. There we go. That goes, sits right down on the floor there actually. That adds some much needed detail to our cockpit there. Let's get rid of some of that excess. There we go, and just brush over it with the microset. Both of them have fundamentally gone onto flat substrate, so I don't think we need the microsol. Okay, so decal's on. We can then put that in there like so, and we've got quite a nice busy little cockpit. I do want to, before we add that together, I do want to put the pilot in, and there's a couple of control sticks to go in as well. Skin tone time. Obviously, given the scale, we're going to do this without a lot of detail. I might give the figure a bit of a wash. I might, or I might not. I haven't decided yet. Let's see how detailed his face looks once we've given him a bit of paint. We need a little bit of thinner actually. Let me get my dropper bottle. Put all my thinners into dropper bottles, it just makes it a lot easier then. So rather than putting it straight into the paint, put some on the side so we can mix in as much as we like, and rather than thinning it and getting the consistency right and using up more paint than we need. There we go, that's just flowing a little better. So his face should be dry already, so we'll just give that a second coat. Those of you that remember Camberwick Green, looks just like one of the characters. Yeah, I think we won't be doing too much in the way of a wash on that. Okay. Next thing I want to do is just put this guy's tie in. Okay. What I'm going to do is just put this wash on, and hopefully that will just give a little bit of definition to this guy's face and hands. Okay, right, just got the headphones to do, and the badge on his cap, and then we can get him glued in. So I'm going to wash my palette. I'll be back in a sec. So when you look at photographs of the Rotodyne, and we're fortunate that there's a fair few colour photographs of her, one of the things that's evident is that the things like the propeller blades and the top of the rotor, this bit here, and the arms of the rotor, they look like highly polished chrome metal compared to the silver of the paintwork. I want to try and capture that. So rather than using aluminium, which is slightly duller silvery colour, I'm going to go with MIG metal steel. This is paint number 191, which has a lovely shine to it, and with us doing a little bit of work with some glossy black paint, I think should look quite good. So what we're going to do is we're going to paint the rotor crown in this to start with, because we need to install this when we put the two halves of the fuselage together, and we're going to do the landing gear in it, even though that would ordinarily be aluminium. Now, that does allow us to give it a wash to which will dull it down a little bit and show up the little bits of detail that is on there. But in the main, we want this to stand out when we put the silver on the paintwork, is my thought process. And we are going to hand paint this, so it will take a couple of coats. What I like about these MIG paints is you can brush paint them really easily as well. And this is straight from the bottle, I've not thinned it. This paint dries really quickly as well, so by the time we've painted the other parts, we'll be able to come back to this one and give it a second coat while we've got the paint in the palette. There we go, that will do for the first coat. So, other things that we need to paint. This is the landing gear for the nose. Now, there's no talk about putting weight in the nose, so I'm assuming this is all okay. You can just see how lovely this goes on right from the bottle with a brush. In fact, I've brush painted with this paint more than I have airbrushed it. Other landing gear to do. And I think when it comes to the propeller blades, I'm actually going to go with chrome for those. There is some black on them, they have yellow tips, but I'm thinking we might just go chrome. Painting these now means that I can also put together the two engine nacelle halves and get those built up ready for painting as well, and we can paint them at the same time. So all of this work is helpful for progressing the build in a nice orderly manner. I don't like to waste paint, so we will do his badge and possibly some buttons in a minute using this silver, I think. Okay, let's look at putting some buttons and a badge onto our guy here. So we'll start with some buttons. Right, just the headphones left to do on him. So one of the features of the Rotodyne was it was very, very noisy. Indeed, that's why it didn't make any commercial sales. So when the government said they were withdrawing funding for military sales, it was dead in the water. And that is why I think it's good to highlight this guy's got headphones on. It's not just for communication, it's to drown out the sound of all those rotors. So I'm using German pale camouflage green for the headphones. There we go, they look great. And then what we will do is we'll paint a little strap across the top. I think we will do that in a metal colour. If we take that down on the sides there, right down to the headphone, and that all looks nice and natural, doesn't it? So that is our pilot done. He's got a set of headphones on, put the buttons on, put his tie on, little badge on his hat. I think he looks quite smart. Right, now time to get this cockpit assembled. So we're going to start by gluing our pilot in. I'm not sure which seat he should go in. Obviously, there was two originally, and I appear to have lost one of these guys somewhere. He'll turn up one day. So that's him in, and very smart he looks too. Yeah, he doesn't sit very well in the chair, unfortunately, but hey ho. Okay, we then have two little control sticks to add, and they are supposed to go between his feet, which I think is going to be a little bit challenging. Maybe. So I'll put a little dab of glue on, and then we'll put the other one on in alignment. Okay. And then we'll put this one on sort of level. And then finally, put a little spot of glue and put all the dials in. Now that looks alright, so we'll let all that dry for a sec. And then we've got this back piece here. So this is the back bulkhead for the cockpit, and this just clips into place there, and that is our front wheels. I'm a bit worried about the fact that it moves, because we might find that the nose collapses a bit, so I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on the tops there and glue that in place as well. So that's done. So now we can look at putting the two halves together. So we have to put this in place. That sits in there like that. Our two halves go together like that. Okay, so the decals do go the full length of this, so it should be nice and easy. We're actually masking off a line that isn't a line that's going to be visible at all. So I don't want the tape interfering with any of these lower surfaces, because that's all going to get primed in the black as well. Okay, so everything underneath is in the silver, and then when you look top down, it's only the fuselage centre that is white. So basically the width of that, so that section's white, that, but these and these are silver. So quite a lot of black primer to put down. Let's just put some on this other edge. Right, I think we are then ready for some black primer. Now, normally I'd be putting gloss black primer down, but I recently did an experiment and found it didn't actually make a whole lot of difference. Possibly if you're using a bit more of a thinner opaque paint, it might, but I found it made very little difference. So I'm going to use a black matte primer, but I am still going to use a black gloss primer for some other parts that are more chrome and therefore need to be more shiny, just in case it makes a small difference, but I don't think it really does. So let's get some primer on, shall we? Right, that is our black primer done, I think. So I'm happy with that. As you can see, you can brush paint primer, no problem at all. So everything that you see that's black is going to be silver. Definitely has a bit of a 50s feel to it, doesn't it? Right, so we will let that dry, and it needs to be properly dry to allow it to be masked, because I want to mask off these wing roots and what have you before we do the priming for the white. Right, let's start on the top and see how it goes down. Yeah, I'm happy we've got the paint consistency right. A couple of coats of that, and that should look really good. to effectively brush painting white enamel paint is to make sure that you've got it thinned just perfectly. If it's too thin, you're not going to be able to get a good coverage and you're going to need more coats. If it's too thick, then it's going to build up in areas, you might get drips and you're going to lose detail. So you've got to be pretty much bob on with the thinning of your paint. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to use the white. I'm using Humbrol Matte 34, I think it is, the white. And I'm using their thinners. Now you can use white spirit, low odor white spirit is a good choice for thinning these paints, and it's cheaper than the Humbrol thinners. So it'll do exactly the same job really. So I'm just going to add a little bit. You can see straight from the can that paint is really quite thick. Quite thick and gloopy. So we need to put quite a bit of thinner into that to get it where we need it to be. Well, it doesn't matter too much about this centre line that I've taped off because the decal goes right over the top of the centre. So we can, it doesn't matter if they're slightly out of line. So you can see in just the time that I have put that paint down, this is already dry to the touch, and we could do a second coat. By the time I've done the rest of this painting, they'll absolutely be ready for a second coat. So don't be scared of using enamel paints. They're really, really flexible paints. And in many ways, they're easier to use than acrylics, both on brush and airbrush. Right, we have the white paintwork now finished. It's been brush painted. I think it's 5 coats of Humbrol enamel white, flat white on there. When you're brush painting, if you're not using an airbrush, the way to do it is lots and lots of thin layers, almost translucent, so that you're building up a fairly even level of paint. And what will happen is the thinner your paint is, the less issue you have with thick and thin paint in the same coat, and so the blocking effect of the colour as you put multiple layers on happens quicker. If your paint is a bit thicker, then what will happen is that you'll exacerbate that a little bit on each layer, and it'll take longer, you'll need more layers, and ultimately you can lose detail. So brush painting is an absolute art that's almost dying out now with people using the airbrush all the time. Obviously you can airbrush this. It'd be very easy to mask this off and airbrush it, but at the end of the day I'm trying to keep this a sort of a retro build and keep it in keeping with the period when it came out. So yeah, it is done. I'm happy that that's got to the standard that we can get it to, or I can get it to, brush painting. So there is a little bit of touch up to do, and 1 or 2 other bits before we can put decals on and do varnish. But what I'm going to do is leave that 24 hours to fully harden. It's touch dry now, I can pick it up, but what you'll have is a hard shell, and it'll still be a little bit soft underneath. So we just want that to dry off before we start thinking about anything else. So this is nearly all of my parts that I've got left for painting. I've got the canopy clear part to paint as well. And I have something missing, which is another one of these small wheels, which is the front wheel. I'm not quite sure what's happened, but somehow I appear to have lost it in some way. So